everyone. Welcome to Cyber Smart Conversations with Harsha. I have with me Director of Business Development at DB Engineering, Jeremy Richmond. With experience in digital buildings, energy management, and analytics, Jeremy helps CRE clients to leverage the power of technology to solve problems within their portfolio. Thank you for joining, and how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me today, Harsha.
Great to have you. Jeremy, one of the questions I always like to start with is to share about the career path. I would love to hear more about you and your background.
Yeah, so I got to say it's interesting. I don't know that 20 years ago I would thought that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, because I came up from, I was a boiler automations technician for a number of years, and then got into building automations, and then got into facilities. And then I went to construction, and I was running service groups in construction on how do we collect data out of our buildings so that we can do our job better as from a service provider. And moved from that over to where I'm at now, helping owners of large portfolios of real estate be able to extract the intelligence that's in their facilities and put it to actionable use to solve problems that they have at the time. So it's been a very interesting career path. I have loved everything that I've done, and had some very interesting jobs along the way. But yeah, it's not a straight line.
Yeah, it's more like curvy path, but amazing journey so far. So today's discussion is about technology and data in commercial real estate. I know we have connected in past so many times to talk about this, but really want to know more about your take on technology and the use of data in commercial real estate space. So we all know, real estate companies, they have enormous amount of data, data being captured in different building systems and different enterprise applications. But we are still in that process as how to capture, how to collect, assess, and then visualize that data. And more importantly, how to turn it into an actionable information.
Mm-hmm.
And we have always seen, for us to develop any action or to build a strategy, so you really need correct and data in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and you agree with me on this, that we often hear from technology people in the real estate on the issue of how to harness this data, how to generate insights, and then data governance. And
right.
we had so much of discussion on this in the past also. But on the other side, we know there are so many different use cases that are built and then that we see in the industry that drives operational efficiencies. So we know data drives to better decision making, but where to start? How to begin?
No, and that's a fabulous question, because we get that a lot, and it's you almost have to take a step back and go, what are we trying to answer for? Mm-hmm. What question or what problem are we running into that we need to solve? And then we can start going backwards and finding what are the variables that impact that. Is it HVAC and automations? Is it electrical? Is it occupancy? Is it parking systems? Like these, when we start to take it back from the macro level of what is the problem, or what is the question that we need answered, and start breaking those down into components, eventually we get back to, it's the light switch on the wall that knows I was in that building and flipped the switch because I have a hard key entry building. And then we have a spike in electrical consumption. So it really kind of takes it back to understanding what is the problem we're trying to solve for. What are the impact? What systems or operations impact that question or that problem? And then what data within those systems can help us identify that? And a lot of times they don't know what data is enclosed within those systems until they can extract it and see it and go, oh, we didn't know we had all that. And then that light bulb goes off of, okay, now how can I get this on a reoccurring basis? And then we start to see that snowball build to solve that that problem or answer those questions, provide those metrics. So that's the best way. If we have to start from zero, it's what are we trying to solve for? What systems feed into that question? What data is enclosed with those systems, and what components of that data do I need to actually analyze? And so we bring it all the way back down to the individual data point that start to snowball up to being able to answer that question.
Interesting. And those were great points. Like understand the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what is that you're trying to solve, and then which systems to focus on. And the point that you mentioned, like there are so many data points. We get overwhelmed by seeing so many data
Mm-hmm.
points. So, but really it's important to understand which one to focus.
Right.
And on top of that, we see proptech. Proptech has created that opportunity to harness that information and then at the same time generate so many data points. So I think, and one of the biggest challenge that a lot of building owners are facing today is there are so many proptech solutions that are coming in the market, and some of them are really great solutions, but a lot of them are new and not tested enough. So I'll share one stats with you. I was reading this 2020 commercial real estate outlook report that was from Deloitte. So 92% of the people responded that they want to use the solution for tenant experience related technology.
Mm-hmm.
But then what's the problem? Where to start? What's that effort, or what that cost looks like? These factors are not clearly defined. So what are some of the areas in the commercial real estate state where you see the biggest opportunity to apply these proptech solutions?
Absolutely. Avoiding the cool but not useful solution is paramount, because it's not that solution is not useful in and of itself. It may not be useful for you as the facility owner, the property owner, or property manager. So from that standpoint, you really have to look at what are those problems, what data do we need. What I'm seeing a lot of is, especially with the contraction in occupancy and different tenants consolidating their space, giving up real estate, is really how are those spaces being utilized? I feel like that's the theme that I'm seeing. Like if we were to look at what's happening right now, it's a lot of how is that space being utilized, which then goes back to how many card swipes are coming in the building, how many people are on the floors. And now we can start to see that and go, okay, how is that impacting ventilation? Are we over ventilating facilities? Do we have opportunities or under ventilating facilities? Is there opportunities for energy savings because of that? If we're not utilizing that space, can we remarket that space as a community event? So one of the things that I was very happy to see when I was down at CoreTech at the end of last year, we did a LinkedIn tour, and in their campus that we walked in, they had space that they knew was generally underutilized, and they converted that space to community space. And then they made that space available for the local school districts. They were able to come on site and do STEM classes and programming and coding, right there in these new spaces that LinkedIn made available because it was underutilized space in their real estate portfolio. So that was, I think, a really neat way to look at how are we utilizing our space from a proptech perspective, and then how do we make that into something that's more and more powerful to the community.
Yeah, that was a great use case, like understand the space and how well they use. And at the same time, there are other factors like energy efficiency, space utilization, and then giving back to the community. I mean that's a great use case.
Yeah.
That we do look into account is the use case or the problem we are trying to solve. But many of these solutions, they connect with critical assets in the building or are deployed in the building infrastructure. So that's where cybersecurity plays a key role. A lot of these companies who develop these solutions, either they don't have the capacity or the time or knowledge base to incorporate security in the solution. So this is something that needs to be asked when we select these solutions for the building. So what's your take on this?
Sure. I think part of that take is really understanding what the posture of the company is from a cybersecurity perspective, and what regulation and compliance may be important. So a financial services client is going to have a different set of compliance and regulation requirements than call it a commercial office space. It doesn't mean the data needs to be less secure, but there's a different level of rigor from an analytics and reporting perspective that is required, especially on the auditing components of it. So understanding what that infrastructure looks like from that layer is kind of key one. And then another one is relying on your partners, relying on your consultants to help you bolster your case around the cybersecurity of that data so that we're not violating anything. And sometimes it comes to educating our own internal staff on what that data is, what it's being used for, the risks about that data, the classification of that data. Because a lot of times we get into the conversations and we're like, hey, has data privacy had a look at the data that's going to be transmitted? And they go, well, we didn't realize that was something that needed to happen. And well, it kind of is. And so we need to get everybody on board with understanding what the data is, what it is telling us, the risks about that. I've worked in some facilities that, one data set all by itself wasn't a cybersecurity risk if it was shared internally amongst the organization. But you take that same data set across a lot of different assets, and then it becomes a much different scenario around what that data can and should be used for and the risks associated with that. And so getting back to knowing what the data is and what we're going to be doing with it, relying on our partners and our internal security team, our data privacy teams, the classifications, understanding what our auditing needs are for said data. And how do we know that we achieve success? How do we know we are being cybersecurity compliant in accordance with all the best practices? So those are kind of the conversations that I have with my clients down that road.
Yeah, great point. Like it's important to understand the vendor security posture and then ask the right questions to assess the security. But then we also need to understand how we are deploying it and where it is getting deployed so that we don't overdo
Absolutely.
or we don't underdo the security. Yeah.
Is it a premise-based solution? Is it a private cloud-based solution? Is it a public cloud solution? Do we have data sovereignty we need to be concerned about? Right? There's, GDPR compliance. Is this going to be deployed in North America, Europe, Canada, US? They're all different.
Yeah. And as we are actively embracing these cutting edge technology applications, and for various reasons, tenant satisfaction, operational efficiency, to make better and more energy efficient use of spaces, like you said. And many of these solutions, they also provide greater portfolio visibility, like what's going on not only in one building, but how to compare one building to other building and get a portfolio level visibility. So what do you see as some of the positive impacts and some of the side impacts of these technology and connected systems?
Absolutely. So positive impacts, that's an easy place. I love starting there because it prefaces the negative ones. And so getting into seeing, like you just mentioned, how is site A running compared to site B? How are the systems performing from a KPI and metric performance? If I have one set of manufacturers across multiple buildings, how is that equipment performing across the entire portfolio? And that now starts to lead into other questions of, do we have training opportunities? Do we have ways to consolidate on our procurement? Do we have ways to highlight internally the benefits, the good things that are especially our facility maintenance teams are doing in these buildings today? All of this starts to kind of compound the different building sets, the different types of buildings, how the equipment, how the operating systems in those buildings are performing, because again, those can also help influence future decisions from a service contracting perspective, from a procurement perspective, from a maintenance standpoint of what type of materials do we need to make sure we need to maintain now. And then on the flip side of the coin, what are our opportunities to help train our staff? How do we take the best practices we're doing over at site A and bring those over to site B? Because those teams, they may never talk to each other. One could be on the western part of the country, and the other one could be on the eastern part of the country. They may never see each other. So, but if the systems in those buildings are the same and they're operating the same, how do we take the best practices and share it across the organization?
Yes, and that will help save a lot of time and use of a consistent practice across the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I would like to add here is, like, as we are adopting more and more technology, like paying attention to cybersecurity and then concerns around data theft and system attack.
Mm-hmm.
Because now what we are seeing, building owners, they want more and more automations, process, and then best data available.
Right.
And like we still see, we do realize the importance of technology, and you made a great statement that KPIs, these solutions, they help measure the outcome, define the KPI, so you have some tangible points to see and to measure across the portfolio from one side to another or from one system to another.
Right.
But at the same time, we still see there is a major disconnect between interest and adoption.
Mm-hmm.
So
everybody wants to do it, but it's hard.
It's hard. So that's where top 3 points to start developing an actionable technology strategy.
Sure. The top one that you should always keep in the top of your mind is avoiding the cool but not useful. And I know that I see that as like the overarching theme when we start looking at technology and how we are going to incorporate that into our facilities. Is that's always got to be kind of, I think, at the forefront of, as we're looking at systems and looking at technology, that's kind of the overarching theme. But getting into, number one is, what problem are we trying to solve for? What question are we trying to answer? There are different tools for different jobs. Do I need to, build a house when putting up a door is going to work, right? And understanding where that's going to fall. Number two, what do you have right now to help you down that journey, and do that gap analysis of, I have systems A, B, and C that gives me X, Y, and F. And now I need to bring in all of these other systems and all of this other data, right? And then I think lastly, one piece is having a trusted partner to talk to that's not going to try to sell their widget or their solution, their proptech. And no offense to every proptech vendor out there, but we need to be able to provide our clients with the right solution for the right problem, because sometimes we're trying to solve everything when we really only need to solve X, Y, and Z. And so knowing who we can trust from a partnering perspective is very big.
Understand the problem and start small and work your way up. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for sharing your experience. Those were great points. And it's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right. You as well, Harsha. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.